I'm
Welcome.
so happy to be here with you all today. I'm joining from Ottawa, where it's a bit cloudy and it's cold. Winter, I think, is upon us. So I'm going to share my screen. And I encourage everyone, go ahead. I cannot see the chat, but you all can. So have a chat amongst yourselves if you are, um, having a reflection or you'd like to share something that comes to mind as we go through today's presentation. So I want to talk today about something called the F words for caregivers living. And I'll explain what the F words are. It's basically a project that came out of McMaster University in the area of childhood disability. But the F words come from the World Health Organization International Classification for Function. And a couple of researchers at McMaster took them and translated them into um, kind of a template for helping people of all ages, all abilities, to figure out how to live well within domains of all human life. So it will become clearer as we go on, but it's really, I think, a marvelous tool to think about living well when you've got a lot of challenges in your life. Um, so, oh, now I'm unable to advance
Oh,
slides.
hey,
Let
just
me,
Um, does it advance if you press the space bar or the little arrow in the bottom left?
yeah, the arrows. Oh,
there
okay.
you
The
go.
trackpad worked. Okay. So, just as an intro, I just wanted to quickly reflect on what might seem obvious to everybody, but life before caregiving. We had clear relationship rules, um, especially if if even if you have a child with a disability, as I do. Um, our roles as wife, as mother of, say, able-bodied kids who might have come before, or um, uh, husband, daughter, all of these roles are rather prescribed, they're clear. And then um, caregiving inserts itself in your life. And we think of our role still as the defining factor of our relationship. But it has changed because care, the need for care, the giving of care changes relationships. But we're not exactly sure how as we're moving through that process of transformation. And many times we'll say, I'm not a caregiver, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a wife, whatever it is that is our pre-existing relationship. Excuse me. So the problem with excuse me, saying that I'm not a caregiver is that caregiving inserts itself into your whole life. And this is an illustration of a caregiver identity theory that researchers Rhonda Montgomery and Carl Kozlowski developed. So this is an example of spousal caregiving, and you'll see in phase one that in a normal spousal relationship, we give care to each other. If, your spouse gets a cold, or breaks a bone, caregiving is once in a while. But then with a diagnosis, caregiving becomes a bigger part of that pie until um, the role of caregiver subsumes so many other roles in our lives. And then caregiving and the word caregiver becomes undeniable. And to illustrate this, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute and ask Martina to share this short video.
Perfect. I'll just share my screen right now.
Thanks, Martina.
We lead busy lives. We have careers, families, friends, hobbies, and often set a routine. It can be difficult to make time in our routine for self-care or personal transformation. When we do make a personal transformation, it's typically one we actively seek out because it's about how we see ourselves, alone, acting in the world. But what happens when circumstances arise that are out of our control and require us to make time to care not only for ourselves, but also for someone close to us? In the 21st century, becoming a caregiver requires us to rethink everything we once knew. When a loved one becomes a caregiver, everything changes. Responsibilities, beliefs, hopes, expectations, and relationships. Becoming a caregiver is not a role that most people think about, dream about, or even prepare for. But eventually, everyone is drafted into and transformed by the caregiver role. It's a role created by a loved one's need for care, and it infuses all aspects of our lives. Most people do not see or label themselves as caregivers at first, because it's not a desired label that is thought to promote public advancement or recognition. Caregiving is private, not public. Usually comes at a tipping point when caring becomes a full-time job and the quest for personal growth and personal gain become intertwined with care responsibilities. Somewhere along the care journey, disorientation takes hold, throwing caregivers off balance, requiring them to question life expectations they've taken for granted. Caregivers can't help but begin to notice a growing misalignment between their realities and the realities of their friends and family, which often leads to feelings of loneliness. This caregiver transition can make caregivers feel like strangers when what they're going through feels impossible to explain to those closest to them. For the first time, caregivers feel the limitations of their existing social support networks. Caregivers can feel like they lose parts of themselves in the care role. The next natural questions the caregivers may well ask themselves are, who am I? And what have I become? When the realization dawns that real change has taken place and that there's no going back to one's pre-caregiving life, the possibility of a new life presents itself, transforming not simply who you have become, but what you value. Caregivers can begin to use and leverage their distinct voice in creating partners, allies, and social ties to deepen advocacy efforts to become stakeholders, not only in their own loved one's ongoing journey, but also in their own. Becoming a caregiver isn't just something that happens to us. It's a life-altering role and relationship that provides the opportunity to transform our experiences to enhance individual and familial well-being. It's an opportunity to discover new ways of seeing ourselves and being with others.
Thank you. Okay. So, I wanted, when I was thinking about this talk today, thinking about, rather than just presenting the F words, I wanted to think about the journey that we're all on. So our caregiving started at some point, and we were somebody before we were a caregiver. And now we're all caregivers. And I think often, with my own aging, and I'm hoping that you can relate to this, my own aging, the progression of our son's disability, because he has cerebral palsy, but he's medically complex. And so he's aging much more quickly than he would if he did not have a disability. So his condition is changing and becoming more complex. So many moving parts in our lives. And we ask ourselves, what can I do with what I have in order to be the best person, the best version of me that I can be? And what tools do I possibly have to achieve that goal? So um, at first, I began to do a lot of research into something called the capability approach, which is actually an economic theory of how governments and the state can help families um, have a life that they find meaningful. So, so money and household income is not necessarily the be all and the end all of a good life, as we know. There are so many elements to it, and people want to be able to choose what they believe they need to have a good life, based on individual circumstances and individual choice. So that's what I wrote about in that first book, if anybody is interested. Um, in order to figure out how to go about using the F words or any other tool to kind of look closely at your life, I think a good place to start is understanding what's happening in your ecosystem of care right now. Who's who and what are they doing? Um, so that you know what you've got to work with, because it's not obvious. I think we have many things to learn from this tool called care mapping. And um, you can find out all about care mapping on this website. It's called atlasofcaregiving.com. And you go to tools and resources and then to Atlas Care Maps. And there's all kinds of videos there. There are lots of caregiver stories. Um, and this, what you're looking at here is Christie's care map. So Christy is a woman who lives with her husband, Mike, and they look after many people. They look after um, uh, Christie's, I believe that's her sister, Maria, and Maria's husband, Manny. And they also have a son called Pablo. They have a daughter called Maya, and they have a dog called Spot. So you put everybody who lives in the house inside the house. And then because those thick blue lines represent a lot of care going one way, you can see that Christy is actually caring a lot for Maria and for Pablo. She's caring a bit for Eileen and Jim, who care a lot for each other. A bit is the broken line, but the arrows indicate which way is the care going. These care maps are really easy to draw. You only need a piece of paper and a pencil and no artistic talent. So I really encourage you to explore care mapping. Um, the fellow who devised this is Rajiv Mehta, and he used to be a NASA scientist until he became a family caregiver. And then he began to use his MIT, Stanford education in engineering to apply to his experience of family caregiving. And so this is very much evidence-based, and he has a whole bunch of prompt questions that you can ask yourself. For example, um, looking at your care map, who could step in to replace you if you get sick, for example? So, but there are lots and lots of questions that he's devised and tested with many, many, many hundreds of groups of caregivers. So I drew my care map. You can see that I'm not an artist. um, and so it's just something that, again, you can just do it. Like the Nike ad says, just do it. And what I discovered, my sort of aha moment with this care map was that there was a lot of care and support going out of our home with me and my husband, but there wasn't a lot coming in. I looked at my map and I thought, you know what? I need a little bit more support. And so does my husband, Jim. Where are we going to get that? And then that was my question. Looking again at this care map, I thought, what's working? I thought, gosh, things are working pretty well for our Nicholas, who lives in a medical group home nearby, and he has 24-hour one-to-one nursing care. So you can see all the people who work with him there. Many, many, many people, many healthcare professionals are working with him. We have a GP who's really on the ball, pain doc, neurology, neurosurgeon, physiatrist. There's the Ottawa Hospital. And um, and then, but we also care for our daughter, but she lives far away. So there she is, far away. My sister lives in Montreal, but so did my mother. And my sister and I co-cared for our mom, who died in 2018 at the age of 96 after living with dementia for about 10 years. So there was a lot of energy going to um, to my mom at that time. But my sister was doing most of the day-to-day care for my mom because they both lived in Montreal. So you can see how it all works on paper, but normally we don't visualize our lives, and we certainly don't visualize our relationships. I think as caregivers, as things become to get so complicated in our lives, this is a very valuable exercise to do. So these are some of the sample questions that the website helps you with. You can print them out. Um, who's indispensable and what do we do when they're not available? It's important, to know, are the different people aware of each other? And are they aware of what each other is doing or not doing? So, where are the holes in your loved one's support? And where are the strengths? Because sometimes when you read the stories of different caregivers who've done care maps, some of them say, gosh, I didn't realize how actually strong we are. We have a good, strong net of support with all the people. Um, and that's kind of a really great realization in and of itself. So the F words, as you can see, are function, family, fitness, fun, friends, and future. And if you think about it, these are actually the domains of human life. We all have something we're doing for function, even the people we're looking after. So, again, this template was designed for someone with a disability. So, what are they doing for function? They might be going to school if they're young, they might be in rehab. So, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy would be their function, and they would have functional goals there. What do people want to do? What are your aspirations with respect to family? So, this F words template can be used for different purposes, but I want to talk today about the F words as a goal setting tool for caregivers who are wanting a little bit of balance and well-being in your lives. So that's often what we don't have is is balance and well-being. Often we're, you know, putting ourselves last, and we're not as healthy mentally, physically, spiritually as we could be because we're giving unsustainable levels of care. And maybe that's not going to change, but everybody could make a goal, however small, in each of these domains. And we're going to talk about how to do that and then what to do with the goals that you set. So there's fitness, fun, friends, and future. I think it's important, to be able to use this template, which you can go to, um, you can print this out. If you Google the F words of childhood disability, it will take you to the Can Child McMaster website, and there are a whole bunch of tools and resources on the website, including this template. But you don't even need it. You can just write the F words down and make a list of goals underneath them on any piece of paper. Um, so I think you do want to pick a time frame. If you, maybe you just want to make a few goals under these F word domains for the next week or the next month or possibly the next 6 months. But I am guessing that you don't want to make it an F word goal setting, for more than 6 months because our lives change. And many of us are caring for people who are experiencing disease progression. So, in the case of someone uh, whose life and health is changing quickly, say someone on palliative care, maybe, you might want to do very short periods of time. My goal for today is you can make F word goals for the day. It doesn't matter, pick your own time frame, but understand that you're not setting yourself up trying to set yourself up for perfection here, and you don't want to set yourself up for getting discouraged that you have, you've set high goals and you're not reaching them. You never ever want to do that. So you identify the goals, and then, you'll want to share them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute when we get to, you'll have the chance to actually maybe think about doing some of this goal setting today yourself. You'll want to share your effort goals with other people in your family, and you'll want them to do their goals too, so that you can help each other. Um, and our loved ones help us reach our goals too. People who are receiving care are also giving care as well. Like Elaine said at the beginning, we all wear two hats. We all receive and give care. So we can use this exercise to kind of level the playing field of the hierarchy of needs in your family. And so that everybody's on the same level, everybody has needs that are worthy of being paid attention to and fulfilled. So let's talk about what each other's needs are and how to ask each other for help attaining those goals, and ask for and offer support. So, how to change your mindset when you cannot change your situation. This is, I think, the the actual problem with the idea of self-care. When caregivers hear about self-care, often in the public discourse, we are told just to say no to someone who has care needs, which, you know, let's get real, that's not going to happen. Or we're told like to have a bubble bath, or, have boundaries. And the big message here is that if we're exhausted, we're just not doing self-care properly. It's one more thing, we can chalk up as a failure. So, I mean, I think a lot of this stuff about self-care and caregivers that's out there is really harmful. And I think we need to understand that our challenge is to figure this out as we give care. We're not going to stop caring for the people in our lives that we love and whose care needs often are very high. So we just need to figure out how to shift our mindset, even though our situation is not changing. So, one of the things that I had thought of in this context is an idea about 2 cups of tea. You know, when our kids are little and we feel thirsty, we give them a drink. If we feel cold, we put a sweater on them. We're hardwired, I think, to do that. But the challenge in caregiving over the long term is that if we're thirsty, we need to pour 2 cups of tea, because there's a fundamental truth here that there are two people in a caregiving relationship, and both of them need care, and one of them is you. So I think, changing your mindset to care for yourself as you care for somebody that you love is a shift. It's not intuitive for us to do this. Um, but I think we really must. If there's a shift in the way we carry out our daily lives, giving care, we have to not forget about ourselves. We have to stop saying, I'll have mine later. I'll do it later for myself. I think, 2 cups of tea. So I hope you'll think about that. And also, what can you do with tiny slivers of time, which is often the only thing we have to um, to devote to ourselves? I was giving a talk on self-care to the Well Spouse group. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of the Well Spouse Association. It's a really great group if any of you are caring for a spouse. Um, and it's very big in the United States. It's in Canada too. And so it's specifically about spousal caregiving. And one lady said, um, we were talking about how do you look after yourself when you can never leave home effectively? Um, and you can't, go to the gym, or you can't go out with your girlfriends, you can't go out for dinner, none of that. So she said she does Sudoku when her husband is in the bathroom. So multiple times a day, every time he goes to the bathroom, she's got her puzzle ready. And she just takes that 3 or 4 minutes to do Sudoku. And she really looks forward to it. And she said, take another couple of minutes, honey. Enjoy your bathroom break, because she's enjoying those few minutes of alone time with her puzzle. And we began to think, what are all the times in the day when we're waiting for something to happen? So, waiting in the doctor's office, waiting for a red light to change. These are slivers of time that everybody has. And what can you do with them? Thinking about the capability approach lens, what would you choose to do with the time that you're waiting for a red light to change? Is there something that you could do with that that would bring you a moment of peace or joy? Um, and when was the last time you felt your shoulders down? You had a sense of um, real pleasure or joy or love. Um, and how can you think about getting that back? How can you think about putting that into your day? Um, and maybe, I'm talking about such small things. I'm not talking about a big, huge change. I'm not talking about putting your loved one into respite and going to Jamaica. That for most of us, that is just never going to happen. But maybe we have 3 or 4 minutes multiple times a day that we could do something with that cumulatively would make a change to our overall stress levels. Um, so again, this is about understanding and doing some personal science on what do you have in your life? Minute by minute, hour by hour, where are the opportunities to make small changes of doing something for yourself? So, um, this is a really nice slide because these are small things. Notice your body, for example. Turning off all your electronics, drive somewhere new, or if you're out, walk somewhere new, discovering something new that you've never seen before. It is definitely good for our mental health, because as we know, a change is as good. What's the saying? A change is as good as a break. I think that's what it is. Um, Looking at some art or listening to some music, and even as a caregiver, engaging in small acts of kindness. This is very good for us because what this is talking about is choice. This is a random act of kindness that you don't have to do. We have many, 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 many things in a day that we have to do, and some of those we really wish we didn't have to do. But in terms of injecting a little bit of choice, which reflects our personhood, I am a person here. I get to have a choice about, um, I don't know, making a cup of hot chocolate with marshmallows in it for my loved one, even though they never asked for that. Um, and sit down and have one too. That would be a small thing that you could choose and make it something different the next day. So we're beginning to inject creativity and imagination into our lives, which is a hard thing to do when you get into a habit of obligation. Um, so now is the time in the presentation where we get to be a little bit interactive. So I don't know if you have a pencil and paper. If you do, feel free to write down some goals for yourself that might come under the heading, the F word heading of function. And these are not evidence-based prompt questions. These are questions that I made up myself, just from my own lived experience of using F words in my own life. So whatever function looks like to you, maybe your function is caregiving. Maybe that is your principal function. Or maybe your function that you want to think about today is your paid employment if you are in paid employment. Maybe your function is uh, some kind of course that you're taking, or you're involved in learning something new. Whatever it is, what do you need to do that you would like help with? So this would be, in terms of your function writ large, is it your job? Is it your caregiving? What is something within that domain that you need to do that you would like help with? And within that activity, within that domain, which activity gives you most a feeling of accomplishment? What activity are you not doing currently that you would like to begin? So it's, thinking about function by itself, turning it around, looking at it, thinking about it. These prompt questions are designed to help you settle on a goal under the heading of function. What is something you need to do that you've been putting off and you would feel better if it was done? In the conversation that we have at the end, we can begin, if you like, we can begin to take some of your answers and distill them into a goal. But I'm hoping that your answers are going to lead you to your goal here. And again, it doesn't have to be the be all and the end all. The goal can change tomorrow. Because maybe just question 2, what activity gives you a feeling of accomplishment? You want to focus on getting more of that. Your goal might be, I want to do more of that activity, that functional activity, because I feel so good when I do it. So maybe do you see how your answer to the question leads you to the goal? Under the F word of family, if you think about this, how do you like to spend time with your family as a group? Um, every family is so different. It's fascinating. I just came back from visiting my daughter. Oh, oops, sorry. And oh gosh, how to go back. Oops. Oh, there. My, oops, go back. I just came back from visiting my daughter in Washington, D.C., because she's married to a lovely American guy, and it was American Thanksgiving. And, it was interesting to me that they have their own family. She's a couple, but it's not the same as my family. They're creating their own ways of being together. Every Wednesday they host a board game night with their friends, and it's just every family is different. So think about, how do you like to spend time with your family as a group? Because we take our families for granted. We take what we do on a daily basis. It becomes invisible to us because it's habit. So this is an opportunity, doing these F word exercises, I think, to do a bit of what I would call personal science and look at your own life under a bit of a magnifying glass in order to be able to control it better. Um, is there a particular member of your family you would like to spend one-to-one time with in the near future? Because again, as caregivers, when our caregiving subsumes our life, we're spending most of our time with our loved one, or engaged in with care providers, um, organizing medical stuff or whatever it is. And we don't think about making choices within the family unit. And sometimes there are some people in our families who feel a little bit neglected. And, or we look across the room and think, oh, I didn't even know that you won that prize. I didn't know because I was so busy. Something like that can happen with all of us because, again, we start to drown in the needs of another. So maybe consider making a goal, a family goal, to spend one-on-one time with someone. What activities make spending time together more fun, joyful, or meaningful? And again, sometimes this requires us to think, when was the last time I had fun, joy, and meaning in my family? When did that happen last? And can I repeat it? Can I make that a goal in my family domain? Fitness is kind of more straightforward. It's kind of an easier goal to set because um, I think we just need to think about what kind of exercise we love to do and we can do. But I think it's worth also thinking about our preferences because, as we know, um, sticking to a fitness routine or doing a fitness routine, it has to be fun, or we're going to say to heck with it. I'm not going to do it. I hate this. I'm not having fun. So think about all the elements of fitness that you really do find enjoyable and figure out how to get something in the way of a fitness goal that is reasonable, that's doable, and that's fun into your F words template. And, consider the cost. Sometimes, you might not be able to afford a personal trainer. Those are very expensive. Um, but sometimes also you don't want to think about doing something that you used to be able to do before you stopped exercising in order to become a full-time caregiver. You don't want to hurt yourself. Um, so what's the best deal for you thinking about the cost of fitness and fun? Um, Yeah, when was the last time you really laughed and thought, wow, oh my gosh, that was so much fun? Um, and what's your taste? Because thinking about your own taste and your own style of what you enjoy, do you prefer loud or quiet, group or solo activities? Um, and then, is your chosen fun activity feasible? Is this something that could be reasonable to put into your fun goal? Sometimes fun for me, fun could be with just to be with somebody who makes me laugh. Uh, and if I can't get out, my goal would be to invite them over and make sure that my loved one is cared for so that I can be with this person and tell them, I have no agenda here other than to have a good time with you this afternoon. So come prepared. We're going to have some fun. And it doesn't have to be more complicated than that. So, but those are some ideas for prompt questions. Friends, yeah, would you like to make plans to see old friends? In the video that we watched, you'll notice sometimes our old friends, pre-caregiving friends, we have nothing in common with them. In fact, we might even not be able to stand being around them when they're talking about stuff like their next vacation and their new car or something like that. It's just, it becomes intolerable because our experiences grow away from sort of the rest of the world when you're um, caring intensively for someone. Maybe you would like to make new friends, especially with other caregivers. Maybe there's someone in this group that you would like to reach out to and have a coffee with or a virtual coffee with. Um, what does friendship look like to you? Is it a conversation? Is it doing an activity together? And what does friendship mean to you? Um, Everybody, I think, feels differently about that. Like, my girlfriends, we call each other the sisterhood. My friends are so important to me. I love, love, love them. And um, but it's funny because I look at other people, like even my husband, his friends, he plays golf with his friends. His friends are on the golf course. They don't really see each other all that much, but family would be more important. So every individual is different. Um, and think about yourself. If you're setting a goal about friendship, what might that look like? In terms of future, this is a harder one. Um, but maybe you want to think about your future as an investment. Um, what's something you could begin doing that could grow into a habit or a skill in the future? Some people that I know um, they're thinking about, something they want to work toward. So it could be a bigger goal. It could be like this, it crosses over with function and fun too. But say your goal is I've always wanted to fill in the blank. I've always wanted to knit a sweater. So my goal for this, um, for the next week or something, is to buy a knitting magazine, some knitting needles, and a thing of wool. That's all you have to do. This is small steps of looking at something that you're building. Maybe the next goal after that would be, I'm going to knit a scarf, a straight scarf. That's it. Maybe after that, I'm going to make friends with someone who knows how to knit. But you're building the scaffolding of a plan for the future. In terms of, if you don't know, if nothing comes to mind about your future, maybe you could think about what your perfect day looks like. And what could you plan to do that would give you more perfect days or more of a chance at another perfect day? And then to just be very practical, if you're worried about the future, what is an action you could plan that would ease your anxiety about the future? So this was personally, my husband and I were really worried about the future, so we got a lawyer and we redid our wills and our POAs. We still have the list of things. We want to get prepaid funeral plans, and we want to help Nicholas understand his future and build a circle of care for him for after we're gone and all that. There's a million things to do about the future, but you can see how that taken all together, the future is very overwhelming unless you break it down into small goals that are achievable over a week, a month, 3 months, 6 months. And then once you get your F word goals down, share them. Like, I love this idea of everybody in the family doing these F word goals, because everybody has goals in these domains of human life. But often as caregivers, the person you're caring for, their goals, their needs are, we come to believe that they're way more important than anybody else's goals in the family or needs. In fact, that isn't so. A person with healthcare challenges have different needs, but as caregivers, we have needs and goals that are just as valid as the person we're caring for. And furthermore, the person we're caring for can 99.999% of the time help us. They want to contribute too in the well-being of everybody in the family, individually and collectively. So show them your F word goals and say, we're going to make some for you, and then we're going to figure out how we can help each other reach our goals. And, you know, often in a family, we may not be aware that we have these goals. Life goes on, it's busy, we hardly even talk to each other sometimes. And so this is about knowing each other more deeply and being kind, being helpful, being supportive and loving with each other on a level playing field. And, you know, as you're comparing notes and showing and discussing, maybe a couple of people in the family might have a similar goal or even the same goal. Like if you put for a fitness goal, I want to go to the gym once a week, and somebody else in the family says, hey, that's my goal too. So then you can begin to build on that by doubling up. So you can trade effectively too, barter, trade, support, um, and negotiate with each other, and then show your F goals to any of your paid care providers and say, hey, you know what? This is what, these are some goals that I've set for myself. Does anything come to mind? Do you have any way that comes to mind that you could help me reach these goals? And certainly in helping a loved one with their F word goals, it's a good idea to sometimes share those goals too with any of clinicians or anyone who has a particular interest in upholding the health and well-being of the person you're caring for. So just getting some feedback and understanding that, we're having these conversations at home. Can we bring everybody on that care map into this conversation so that we're all supporting each other? So that's that's it for basically the talk part of today. And I think we're going to have a conversation now and we can compare notes. And I just wanted to let you know as well that so I already mentioned the four walls of my freedom being about the capability approach. It also is a lot of moral philosophy about the human worth and worthiness of people who have high dependency needs and who may never be employable in life. How do we value them as human beings? Um, the Unexpected Journey of Caring is co-written with Dr. Zachary White, who um, is a professor of care communications, actually, at Furman University in South Carolina. And the F words are not in the Unexpected Journey of Caring. If there's ever going to be a new and expanded edition, I'm going to write a new chapter about the F words and using them for caregivers. But there's a chapter on care mapping and how to use it specifically for, in care transitions. So coming, you know, moving through levels of care, um, moving from home into institutional care or long-term care, home from hospital with a new device or something. Whenever you've got a major transition, the care map is a really good tool to understand what the heck is happening and who's who and what are they doing. Um, so that is the way that and the purpose that I presented it there. But care mapping is useful anytime, any day of the week. It's a really very valuable tool that I think can offer lots of insight and can help with that um, architecture that it takes to build up to identifying F word goals. And over to you, Elaine.
Yes, I was just going to say before we go to the big room, just for a larger discussion, just a thank you to you for providing such valuable things to think about. So I'm just going to pause the recording.